It's Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. In the last video, I highlighted a study done by the APA regarding our atrophied social skills. As we're finding our way back to some kind of normality that we recognize as desirable and healthy, we're noticing that we're feeling uneasy about connecting with others in the real world. However, there's a real hunger there, and we really want to be connecting with people in the real world. I myself have been attempting to connect with friends in real life and get back to a sense of what it means to be normal. But I'm noticing something about myself. I'm noticing that I'm different. I'm not as engaging as I was before the pandemic. I'm not as energetic as I was in social gatherings. I'm more cautious about the content that's coming out, not wanting to trigger somebody. I'm more cautious about the presentation of me, who I am, and how people are experiencing me. As someone who used to love socializing in large crowds and be surrounded by total strangers and just talking it up and meeting new people, this is brand new for me. And so I'm wondering if you can also acknowledge that too. We've aged about 2 years, at least 1.5 years. We're a little different now as we're coming back into some kind of normality. How do we find our way back? How do we find our way back to socializing like normal human beings again? What can we do to work through this sense of uneasiness that we have about ourselves connecting with others in the real world? Let's start with a question. Here's the question. If you're watching with somebody, or even if you're not, little pausing the video for some interaction or some introspection here. How's your journey toward socially connecting with people in the real world? This video is based on Colossians chapter 1, verses 25 to 27. I'm going to honor the context of what the writers are doing here. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to use it to help us figure out what we can do to be less uneasy and more open to re-engaging with people socially, so we don't feel like we're entirely off our games. Colossians chapter 1, verse 25 to 27. God has given me the responsibility of serving his church by proclaiming his entire message to you. This message was kept secret for centuries and generations past, but now it's been revealed to God's people. For God wanted them to know that the riches and glory of Christ are for you Gentiles too. And this is the secret. Christ lives in you. This gives you assurance of sharing his glory.
Oh, morning already? My daughter is not up yet? Hey, come on down. It's time for community. Coming. Let me do it this time. Okay. Hey kids, don't forget to look in the background for all the cool characters. And don't forget to watch this week's episode of Connect HQ. Bye!
Here's how I'm treating this text and where I'm going with this video today. My whole point is around this one question: how do we get social again? In this particular text, this issue is not exactly what's in mind. Paul is talking about how he is called to interact with other people. God called Paul to interact with other people in a way that would lead them to Jesus. He was called the apostle to the Gentiles. That means that God asked him to be the guy who communicated about Jesus to everyone on the planet and not just the nation where it all started. In this text, as we honor the context of what it's actually talking about, I think I can see two ideas here, just from Paul's experience, just from what Paul says right here, about how we can lessen our personal feelings of uncertainty as we re-engage, and how to be more engaging in healthy and helpful ways as we interact with other people. So hang on, you're going to make it. 2 points here to help you get socially engaged again in a way that feels comfortable for you. Here's my first point in the form of a question. Can you be vulnerable again? The text says, God has given me the responsibility of serving. Now, personally, I love being a pastor. I love helping people connect with each other and helping people connect with Jesus. I think it is awesome. There's one thing that I've noticed about being a pastor that some people may not be able to see. Some people see pastors as people with power, and I get it, because pastors do have power, and they seem to have power over others. However, you can't be a pastor if you're not serving. To pastor is to serve. At the heart of what it means to be a pastor is to serve. It's not a position of power. It's a position of vulnerability. Are there pastors who go for power over serving? Yes, totally. We see it far too often. Are there some pastors who don't recognize the power differential here? Yes, totally. We see it far too often. However, a lot of pastors are doing this really, really well. Serving is a place of vulnerability, not a place of power. So why am I starting with this little illustration here? Because this is kind of where the text starts out. Paul was called by God to be the person who would go to everyone to share the gospel and make God accessible through Jesus. And that includes us, of course, as we read what he wrote in the Bible. He was called to engage people as a servant. He wasn't given a place of power. He was put into a place of vulnerability, and he chose to be in a place of vulnerability, similar to Jesus. Jesus didn't come in war tanks as a king ruling from a political platform and very well funded. Jesus came in a manger, in an animal feed box, to serve the world from a place of vulnerability. Vulnerability is a different kind of power, and it is so powerful. Vulnerability is the kind of power that draws people in. Vulnerability is the kind of power that helps people lower their defenses because they see you lowering yours and they react in kind. Vulnerability can grow and restore relationships. Paul was called to a position of vulnerability to engage with all of the people that he didn't know to lead them closer to Jesus. There's a similarity here between what Paul was trying to do as he engaged with his culture and what we're trying to do as we're coming back into some kind of normal. So let's talk about us for a minute. Let's talk about you for a minute. If you're a Jesus follower, generally speaking, you have been called. We're all called onto the same mission, which is to make God known through Jesus, to communicate and demonstrate that God's kingdom is here right now in the presence of Jesus. Jesus is awesome. He's here today. You can experience him and have friendship with him right now. And we all share that same mission. That's the general mission and the general message we all have. However, there's more to say here. Specifically speaking, agency, our communication and demonstration of the gospel, it looks different for everybody. Your personality is different than Paul's, different than mine, and that's okay. The way you connect with people is different than the way I connect with people, and that's okay. There is one thing that's similar for all of us, though, and that one thing that's similar is this: we are all servants. Regardless of what the gospel message looks like coming from us, we are all doing this as servants. We are not in a place of power. We're in a place of vulnerability, and God has set that up. Okay, so how is this info helpful to us feeling more secure and less triggered as we interact with others, as we all try to find our way out of this pandemic? Vulnerability is the key. God restores our relationship with himself and the entire world through vulnerability, not through excessive force or anger or Facebook posts or nervous withdrawals. He personally became vulnerable to open himself up to become more accessible to all of us. He calls Paul to that same level of vulnerability too. He sent Paul as a servant, not as a tyrant, calling people into relationship with each other and also with God through Jesus. He calls us to that same mission, to somehow find our agency as gospel communicators and demonstrators, but not as tyrants or people with power, but as servants in vulnerability. Vulnerability, making yourself accessible to others by letting your guard down and letting others in. That is so important. You don't have to be anybody else but yourself. And guess what? You're okay. Whoever you are right now, whoever you turned into and became as a result of being locked away or doing whatever you had to do to survive the pandemic thus far, you turned out okay. You're okay. Vulnerability is is like a magic wand of relationship growth and relationship healing. In this text, we see Paul called to a place of vulnerability to connect with everyone and call them into friendship with Jesus and each other. Okay, now some of us are feeling unsure of ourselves as we re-engage with others. Not everybody. Some of us are rocking it. Well done for rocking it. Some of us, though, we're feeling a little unsure of ourselves. In some cases, we feel judged as we're caught between the two poles of vaxxers and anti-vaxxers as they battle that out. In some cases, we feel unsure of ourselves because we've changed. We've gotten older. We've settled down for almost 2 years. In some cases, we feel that we've been forgotten and we feel that we've been left behind by our formal social circles. The trouble with keeping our defenses up is that nothing can get to the inside of us. Okay, now sure, we may be protecting ourselves, but we're limiting access to ourselves as well, and we're pushing other people away. As you are attempting to engage with other people in this very polarizing moment that we find ourselves in, and in this moment where people are suffering from social skills atrophy, and all of us have a little touch of trauma at least because we've just been through a pandemic and we're still not at the end of it. Let me ask you, how vulnerable can you be? Vulnerability can grow and heal relationships. Vulnerability can let you be you, can help you let go of your fear, and it can give you a fighting chance to get your social life back so that you don't feel judged and you don't feel abandoned. Vulnerability within a safe group of people invites more vulnerability. If you're feeling that people aren't pursuing you and they've forgotten about you, pause and ask yourself how easy it is for them to gain access to you. Can you choose vulnerability? I got a second point here, and it's much quicker and it's a little easier. Can you take a chance? The text says, this message was kept secret for centuries and generations past, but now it's been revealed. My oldest daughter and I love going to movies together because we treat them all like they're mysteries to be solved. We talk all through the movie back and forth. We try to interpret and then anticipate the ending, and then afterwards, after the ending, we continue to talk about it, trying to unlock deeper meanings. This totally frustrates my wife and my son because they don't like loud people in the movie theater. And I get it. Like, who does like loud people in the movie theater? But it totally frustrates them. I give you that illustration to make a point about secrets and mysteries. We are used to mysteries that can be cracked and solved. We're used to that. We're used to secrets that can be unlocked or deduced with logic, or by looking at leaked videos on YouTube to try to figure out what's coming up. That's not the kind of secret or mystery that's being talked about here. The gospel was a secret or a mystery simply because God had not yet revealed it. No one could have seen the gospel taking shape the way it had if they were living in the Old Testament and trying to look forward. It was impossible to guess this. The Jewish people were at the center of God's plan because God had called them to be the lighthouse to all nations about the knowledge of God and the gateway to come into relationship with God. No one had any idea at all that God was going to change it, but he did. The big secret or the big mystery that God had not revealed was the inclusion of everyone. Everyone gets access to God through Jesus, personally. They don't need to go through the Jews. They don't need to go through the church building. They don't need to go through a pastor or a priest or some kind of spiritual director. Everyone gets access to Jesus directly and personally. I'm not saying that any of those people aren't important or wrong. I'm not saying that. Anyone expressing kingdom agency to help people connect with God, very, very important. Very important. However, here's the secret that God was holding on to in the Old Testament that's now been revealed. The most important thing is that everyone can and needs to connect with God personally, and nobody else can do that for you. You can be led to God, but you got to access God on your own through Jesus. Okay, let's talk about you, because this is really about you. You're not a mystery to be solved. You're not a secret to be deducted and cracked. You are someone who needs to be revealed so that others can know you. God, for example, knew that no one could know him if he didn't reveal himself. So he took a risk. He took a chance. He sent Jesus to the cross. He came in person, in the flesh, to reveal who he is to us. Essentially, he models how we're to come out of the pandemic and engage again. We take a chance, like he took a chance. We reveal ourselves to others. We become accessible. We take a chance on being vulnerable. We take a chance to reveal the new person that we've become. We take a chance to reveal who we are today. We take a chance on people because people are so important and connecting with others is so important. If we get angry, it's just going to push them away. If we complain, it's just going to push them away. We take a chance on people and become vulnerable. God took a chance on you and revealed himself to you. God called Paul to take a chance and take God's revelation of himself and make it known to you and to me and to everyone. You know God because God chose vulnerability. You know God because God took a chance to reveal who he was to you. If we want to get our social skills back and get our friend circles back and feel a sense of normality again, it's going to take a risk. We're going to need to risk moving out into social circles with other people and choosing vulnerability. Here's a summary. In this polarizing moment of social skills atrophy, we can start reclaiming our social health. It's going to require us to take a risk. We need to risk being vulnerable with other people, letting them on the inside, revealing ourselves to them, saying, this is who I am now. Please accept me as I am. How vulnerable can you be? Can you take a chance? That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please add your comments as well? It'd be interesting just to talk this out a little bit. And also, would you please ask for the link, as this will be our discussion this coming Sunday on Zoom 2 times, 10:30 and 6 p.m. EST. Ask for the link for community, creating community spaces so that you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.